The sound of the loom is what we want back in India. So many looms lie silent in India today, devastated by what COVID has done to the economy. With your help, we can make a difference. Hello and welcome to a very, very special campaign. Handmade, Dil Se, supported by Rang De. Pranoy Roy and Nidhi Kulpati with us. But first, Habba in Kannada means festival. Today, a majority of highly skilled artisans across India live in abject poverty. The pandemic and the subsequent lockdowns have caused havoc in the lives of rural artisans and weavers. With no orders and massive stockpiles of inventory, their livelihoods have come to a standstill. Habba aspires to bring back the demand for handmade in India and revive livelihoods, and here's why. More than 160 lakh households are involved in handloom and the art and crafts sector, with over 80% of them living in rural areas. Now, those numbers are staggering, and to lose a part of this is to lose a part of our soul.
तो आइए दिल से अपने देश की सांस्कृतिक विरासत को सदियों से सहेज रहे हमारे हथकरघे, हस्तशिल्प से जुड़े बुनकर, दस्तकार, कारीगर और शिल्पकारों की मदद करें। हस्तशिल्प या हाथों से बनाए हुए सामान की विरासत को कोरोना के दौर से उबारने के लिए एनडीटीवी हब्बा के साथ मिलकर एक खास मुहिम शुरू कर रहा है, हैंडमेड दिल से। हब्बा एक कन्नड़ शब्द है जिसका अर्थ है त्योहार, पर्व, उत्सव। तो त्योहारों के इन दिनों में आप सबसे गुजारिश है कि अपने हस्तशिल्पकारों का बनाया हुआ सामान ही खरीदें और भेंट करें। खासकर उद्योग जगत से कि तोहफे भेंट करें तो अपने ही कारीगरों, बुनकरों, शिल्पकारों द्वारा बनाए गए हों। हमारे देश में जिस तरह से विष्णु ने बताया, करीब 160 लाख परिवार हस्तशिल्प पे निर्भर हैं और 80% ग्रामीण इलाकों में रहते हैं। इनको गरीबी से उबारना है। इन्हें दान नहीं चाहिए, काम चाहिए दिल से। तो करीब 51 वस्तुएं हैं जिनसे आप गिफ्ट हैम्पर्स कर त्योहारों की खुशियां सबके लिए बढ़ा सकते हैं। तो गो ग्लोकल का जो उद्देश्य है और महत्व है, इससे और सार्थक हो जाएगा।
Thanks Nidhi, and thanks Vishnu. In fact, thank you everyone for joining us. I really feel that this initiative, which is dedicated to weavers, handloom workers, craftspeople and all forms of artisans, is so important, because if there's one section of our nation that make us most proud and are most respected globally, it's India's artisans. Their work is recognized universally to be of the highest standard, and they make us so proud. They make India proud. Yet sadly, they are neglected and not given the economic incentives and the boost in their livelihoods that should be given to them, that they deserve. So this program is just a start along a path of remembering, recognizing, and not just being amazingly proud of our artisans and craftspeople. It is to move forward to ensure that they get what they deserve. This is a really important initiative by Smita and Ram, and I really congratulate them for this. And just one small fact that they shared with me, and that shocked me. Can you imagine that our artisans get less money from their own products than the government gets from GST on their products? And of course, then there's the middlemen, there's the traders who make money off the sweat and blood of our artisan. This just must change. We must do something, and that's what this program is all about.
And we have with us a very special guest now to start our show, Laila Tayyabji. She is the chairperson and founder member of दस्तकार। आप कई लोगों ने दस्तकार हाट का नाम सुना होगा। वाकई में लाइला जी 25 सालों से ज़्यादा से काम कर रही हैं कि जो हुनरमंद हमारे बुनकर दस्तकार हैं वो सीधे इस हाट में आकर अपना सामान देते हैं। लाइला जी, thank you so much for taking out time, and we have seen due to this pandemic the life and the stress these weavers and artisans are going through. कितना बदलाव आया है? आप इतने सालों से इसमें लगी हुई हैं, ज़मीनी स्थिति क्या है?
Well, you know that I was talking to a group of craftspeople today, veteran craftspeople who have been through the decades watching what is happening to craft in India. And they were saying that this pandemic and the lockdown, which was a result of the pandemic, was worse than demonetization. It was worse than the Bhuj earthquake. It was worse than any natural disasters that they have seen. And I think when I asked them that what made this different, they said that before we knew that adversity had struck us or disaster had struck us, but when we came out of it, the market would be there. And the market was there waiting for us. I think today the problem is that craftspeople really wonder what the market is going to be like even when the lockdown and the pandemic goes away, because the economy has been so badly struck and people's purchasing power is so much less. And of course, the tragedy is that craft is not a priority. It is not the thing that people rush out to buy. And I think that that is what we have to change if we want something to change for craftspeople today.
Yeah. Hello and welcome. Thank you, Laila, for joining us. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for being here with us. Frankly, you more than
Lovely
anyone
to
in
be here,
India
Prannoy, and I'm so
spent
happy
so
that
many
NDTV
years.
has taken this initiative, because it's much needed.
No, it is much needed. As you said, it needs to be a much higher priority. But you know, you more than anyone in India spent many years building, reviving, saving and promoting Indian artisanship that goes back, oh gosh, the artisanship goes back several generations. I wasn't saying that you and me go back several generations, I meant the artisans.
Well,
In fact, in
sometimes
many
it
ways,
feels as if one
actually,
has.
no, I would
Yes,
say
I
in many
think
ways
that-
your name is synonymous. Sorry?
No, you say.
Okay. I was just saying that your name is in fact is virtually synonymous with the movement to save our handloom heritage. And you've traveled across India, the length and breadth of India. I just wanted to ask you practically, what steps should be taken to kind of ensure the survival and give a better livelihood of to our artisans, our weavers and craftspeople who deserve it? We're not doing them a favor, we are just so far treating them appallingly. And they're globally recognized as to be outstanding. So how do we give them what they deserve?
Well, I think that really craftspeople's strength is also their weakness, because they are, after all, they are part of our culture, they are part of our aesthetic, but also most importantly, they are part of our economy. But I think that this always sort of slips past, because craftspeople have always been there over the centuries, and we tend to take them a little for granted. And where today, whether they are economists or bureaucrats or politicians or whoever are debating the directions that India is going to take, somehow craftspeople get left out of that. And we feel, oh, they'll always be there, or this is a very primitive kind of activity. It's sort of when India is marching into the 21st century and trying to catch up with the whole technological world, that craftspeople, do they have a part to play? Should they just be subsidized for the duration? How do we do it? And to me, this is the most short-sighted thing, because actually the craft sector and the handloom sector are the two areas where India has something that no other country in the world has. And while we're sort of rushing to catch up with the rest of the world in so many directions, we have this wonderful asset, and we should be investing in it instead of just assuming that it will always be there. And one of the phrases which really gets my goat is when you talk about investment in the sector or some calamity that has struck the craft sector, you're always told that, oh, craftspeople are so resilient. You know, the sector is very resilient.
Right.
I think that we have to stop saying that, and we have to think that if this has survived and has to survive,
Right.
and has to continue
But
to
Ms.
be
Tyabji, let me ask
something
you,
absolutely
Vishnu here, and
amazing.
let me ask you, Ms. Tyabji, one question that comes to mind. If you had to tell our viewers one thing about why they should buy handmade, what would that be?
Well, it would be because, as I said, it reflects an Indian culture and aesthetic. It also means that in a world where everything is getting so uniform and branded, handcraft is the one way to have something which is distinct and unique to yourself. I think that the time for sort of brands which look exactly the same, whichever high street you're in, wherever you are in the world, has really gone. And we should play to our strengths. We should see how wonderful it is to look distinctive, how appropriate it is in this world to have something which is green, which is eco-friendly, which is made with love and with tradition, and which yet can be transformed into something very contemporary and appropriate.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point. And Vishnu, your question is really valid. It's not why we should buy it. It is just a wonderful, wonderful products. They should scream out at us. But the marketing by mass marketing by corporates and advertisers don't really let us see enough of this wonderful, and as Leila says, unique aspect of high quality in India. So it should come naturally to us. They need a bit of a step up and help, like we help every sector, and perhaps help them a little more than we do other sectors, but it's exactly the opposite.
Things like packaging, promotion, sort of presentation, of course R&D and design development, because consumers' lifestyles have changed and we need to create things which are functional and appropriate to those lifestyles. But we need to actually treat it like any other sector of the economy. We have to invest in infrastructure, we have to invest in skilling, we have to invest, as I said, in packaging and promotion.
Right.
And I think we just don't do that. I mean, there's absolutely no reason
But Leila-ji, let me tell you what I can share with you right now, what we can share with you right now. And this is going to make you happy, because it certainly makes us happy. Before we go to our next panelist, we are very happy to announce that Optum India has pledged 28 lakh rupees in support of Handmade in India. In the true spirit of Diwali, Optum India members will receive handmade gifts. Now, conventionally, Optum would celebrate with sweets, but this time they are celebrating the festival with India's artisans. Prannoy, isn't that absolutely wonderful?
Fantastic. I mean, we should all please come forward and use this opportunity to use the handloom sector and give gifts of handlooms of various types or artisan works of different kinds for Diwali. And for any gift. It really is a great idea.
Well, joining us now, Prasanna Hegodu, the theatre director and founder of Charaka. Thank you very much for joining in today. Now, you've had to deal firsthand with the fallout of the pandemic and the lockdown. Your organization, Charaka, which supports hundreds of handloom weavers, had to stop operations because of COVID. Now, if this happens to a successful, profitable venture like yours, then this is perhaps a reflection on the true state of the industry. Would you agree?
Yes. We went through hell. 6 months, there was no sale, and we could not stop giving yarn to the weavers. So we kept on giving yarn to the weavers. We are a profitable society. We produce a premium product. We produce 30,000 meters of naturally dyed handloom fabric every month. We are the biggest in India. But even then, the cash dried up. So we went through a crisis, but then we have bounced back because of help from the customers, the consumer. We told the consumer that, look, you can save the handmade. And that's what helped us. And as far as the society is concerned, the people, the weavers and the women, mostly we are a women's cooperative society, they actually could not weave, could not dye, could not print. So what they did was, for about 2 months, they did mud work. The entire charka was redone with mud plastering, mud flooring. It was an amazing, and then there is a lake next to charka. This was desilted, and that's how they held on to the cooperative. And now we have bounced back. And after bounce back, I really feel that COVID is actually come at the right time, in the sense that, today I can say that handloom is the fabric of the future. If you want to have a good future for the country, for the economy, for the society, there's no way but to treat this not as a dole-giving sector, but as a sector which has to be taken seriously, a sector which has to be invested in, as Laila ji was trying to say. Thank you.
It's really important, Prasanna. Thanks very much for pointing that out. There's this urgent need just to pay attention to handloom, and to do that quickly. We've given so much help to the software sector for exports, and we really have helped them, and they've done very well. And they're huge exports, and we are proud of it. But let me tell you, our handloom could be as big if we treated it in the same way and gave incentives and help and focused on it. I think that's the point you're making. There's a revival happening in the economy, and we can't ignore the handloom sector for much longer. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Most people don't know, most bureaucrats don't know, most politicians don't know that the active looms in India, even now, in spite of all the horrors that we have done to the sector, is bigger than the rest of the world put together. We have more active looms than China can ever imagine, or Vietnam can ever imagine, Korea can ever imagine. So if you really want to beat them, you can only beat them with the handloom, with the cotton. You see, we are cotton people. China is silk people. We've always been cotton people. We've always been indigo people. And nobody else has this. This is premier product. So we need to understand this, invest in it. Yeah.
Right. Prasanna ji, thank you so much for sharing with us what you've gone through and what the area has gone through. Thank you so much indeed. Before we introduce our next guest, we want to remind our viewers that they can log on to ndtv.com/dilse to buy hampers of handmade gifts. Now, it's a new concept. It's a mystery hamper. You choose the type of hamper, but not the exact handmade items. What you spend goes to the artisan or weaver who handmade that gift for the festive season. Isn't that absolutely fantastic? Well, joining us now, Anita Dongre, Chief Creative Officer at the House of Anita Dongre. Thank you so much for being with us. Tell us a little bit about the role that fashion designers can play, and in fact have been playing in keeping Indian textiles, handloom, traditional designs and traditional techniques alive.
First of all, congratulations NDTV on this initiative. I think the media plays a very important role in creating awareness, and I think what you have initiated is wonderful and will go a long way. I think today fashion designers need to use creativity to support this sector, and like Mrs. Tyabji, whom I deeply admire, just said, is that design plays a very important role. So working very closely with weavers and guiding them on what colors today's woman is looking for, what design she's looking for, what texture she's looking for. So fashion design plays an extremely important role to keep this sector extremely relevant. They have the skill, they have the craft, but I guess if a designer works together with weavers or with any artisan, it's a win-win situation.
Anita Dongre, thanks very much for joining us, and you're doing so much, and it's great to have you with us. And as you say, there's a lot of skill and education to be done in upgrading of the whole artisan sector, which we've done with other sectors, and we need to do it here as well. But what about the consumers? I hate to say this, but marketing, promotion, making people aware of how special handloom and artisan work in India is, needs to be promoted. I really feel, in fact, even NDTV doesn't do enough, and I think this should be a kind of catalyst for us, and we should be pushing and explaining all this to the average consumer, particularly the young consumer in India. Don't you think so?
Yeah, Pranoy, I said this exactly last week in a talk, and I just requested everybody who was listening to me. They asked me, what is the one thing that we need to do? I said, the one thing you need to do, and especially it's Diwali, it's the time to gift, is that whenever you go shopping, just try and buy one garment. If you're buying 2, 3 or affluent, please try and buy one garment that's either hand woven or hand block printed or hand embroidered, anything that's done by a rural artisan. It's so important to keep rural India alive. I've always believed that sustainability lies in our Indian villages. I mean, there are so many pluses to just making sure the sector stays healthy and the craft continues. Like, the two speakers before me have said that India should be proud of what we have. I think even today the tourism in our country can encourage visits to block printing units, to handloom units, where people should go and see for themselves what an amazing craft it is, how difficult it is, and how talented these weavers are in what they do. And I think just taking a pride in this legacy that we have, students being taken to weaving centers and being educated about what we have, tourists being taken there. We have so much in our country to show off, but we undermine what we have. We're always looking to the West, and I think now is really the time we need to look inside, look within, support our crafts. I also tell, because I design wedding clothes, and I always request all my guests at weddings that please give something that's hand woven, please give something that's handmade. So there are so many ways in which we all can contribute. And like I said, this sector doesn't need charity, it just needs employment.
Absolutely.
Corporates have huge CSR budgets today. They should start looking at supporting village units. And we have such large corporates with such huge budgets. I mean, there's so much. If we all collectively get together, this whole sector can see such an amazing revival, and that's what's needed.
बिल्कुल अनीता जी, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर जॉइनिंग। और आपकी जो क्रिएशंस हैं उसमें भारतीय कारीगरी की जो छाप है, छवि है, साफ नजर आती है। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया जुड़ने के लिए। नाउ वी हैव अनदर स्पेशल गेस्ट, फिरोज BR, सीनियर वाइस प्रेसिडेंट एंड हेड, SAP Academy for Engineering. Sir, you work for a corporate. You also run a foundation of your own, the India Inclusion Foundation. What kind of role could corporate India be playing in support of this cause?
Thank you. Firstly, thank you for inviting me to this amazing initiative. My take is that, the pandemic is really a marathon, in the sense that it is very different from a natural disaster which starts and ends. This is going to be with us for the next few months, if not years. And so we have to really look at a long-term solution. I don't think we can solve the problem by doing Diwali gifting, and corporates do have their CSR budgets. But my personal take has been that this sector has been left behind in the technology movement that we have had in the country. I've had some outstanding artisans whom I know personally, and they don't even have a basic thing like a website to showcase their artwork. So I think we have to look at it holistically. While I think there are 3 different stages. What is it that you can do at a personal level? And like many of you said, we can start buying from our local artisans. But even at a corporate level, I think we have to start looking at what are the policy changes that we can do from a corporate point before we go to a garment sector. Just to give you 2 simple examples of what we have done in our own small ways. I'm based in California. I work for SAP. When we built our own SAP Academy campus, the first thing we said is all the paintings in the new office has to be procured locally. So that was a very simple thing to do and can be done. We tied up, for example, even with a local bookstore. We said we want to support mom and pop bookstores. So every time we have either an author coming in, we said we will buy from the local bookstore, not from the big online companies. So I think there has to be, number one, a policy level change, because as I said, this issue, this pandemic is not going to go away immediately. So what are the policy level changes that we can do at a macro level? And if you've looked at all challenges that we've faced, and this is by far the biggest one we will face probably in our lifetime, I believe the core is when we focus on what I call as Seva, Sangha and Simran, which is service, community, and introspection. If we do that, I think we can drive a large-scale change.
Yeah, that's actually very, very heartwarming to hear. And also, you know, we've seen historically, and you've seen it in California, the society gives huge incentives to certain sectors for 10, 15 years to boost them. You know, maybe tax breaks, maybe ensure that the middleman doesn't take most of the chunk of the price and that the government doesn't put high GST on it. All kinds of things we could do for the next 10 years, a 10-year program to boost and incentivize financially this sector. Because after doing that and after a good promotion, it'll stand on its own feet because you feel there's an inherent quality there, isn't it? Absolutely, Dr. Roy. And as I said, I get disappointed when we think short term. And the pandemic is a classic example that we have to think long term, because Diwali will come and go, but our artisans' challenges will remain. So really we have to introspect and think long term.
The importance of introspecting and thinking long term. Feroze, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much indeed. Well, joining us now, Ratna Krishna Kumar, founder, Aranya Natural, and the managing trustee of Srishti Charitable Trust. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us. Tell us how Aranya came about and what you do through it.
Srishti Charitable Trust. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us. Tell us how Aranya came about and what you do through it.
Thank you for having me on this lovely program. Aranya came about with this decision to rehabilitate physically and mentally challenged young adults. This is these are the children of the tea pluckers in Munnar, the tea gardens, and unfortunately, because of the intermarriages within families, there are lots of children who are born with physical disabilities. So they were not taken care of properly because the parents had to both go for work and they had to be left alone in the house. So finally, it was sometime around 27 years ago that the Tata Tea company decided that we should have a program to rehabilitate these children as well as young adults. So Aranya was formed during that time because I had a chance to go to Dhaka and learn little about natural dyes. And I realized straight away that to take this forward, the only way to do this was to take it to Munnar, where they had spring water and the natural resources were there in plenty. And that was 25 years ago. We just celebrated our silver anniversary, and we have gone from strength to strength, and we have an international clientele, and 60% of our sales is from outside the country, and the rest is from India. What we do is we do shibori, we do plain dyeing, we do all kinds of techniques taught to us by world-class people. We are very lucky that we had very talented and very knowledgeable people come and do workshops with us. So as a result of that, we had excellent ways of learning from them. And our youngsters, our young adults, they are now in their 40s, but we still call them youngsters.
Yeah.
They are so talented with no background in textiles whatsoever,
They managed to learn everything from scratch. And today they are standing on their own feet. They are independent. They are paid wages according to the Plantation Labor Act. So they get income, they get daily wages, they get a place to stay, they have the vehicle which picks them up from their houses and brings them to the unit.
Absolutely.
So this has been a great success story, and Aranya is a pride for me personally, as well as all the youngsters who are working there.
Ratnaji, you worked extensively with the weavers. You set up a project in Varanasi where the weavers created handmade saris as the uniform for the Indian hotels groups. Just to be clear, as Anita Dongre just sometime back mentioned on the show, that the need of an hour is providing them work, the opportunity to earn, not charity and donation.
I couldn't quite hear that very well.
Yeah, so basically they need work. Our weavers, artisans, they need work right now. They don't need donations. They need to be self-sustained. Yes.
They need work. They don't need charity from anyone.
Yeah.
See, I had a program in Varanasi making uniform saris for the Taj. Yeah. And when we went to the village first, we identified this village with excellent weavers, but they had no work. When we went there first, there was absolute poverty. The children were malnourished, the adults equally poverty stricken, but not one person asked us for money. They all said, "Mujhe kaam dijiye." So that interests me so much, because they could have easily asked us for money and we would have given them whatever we had in our hand. But not one person in the entire village of weavers, they're all very good weavers, but none of them asked me for money. Or asked us for the money.
Sure.
And I went with the young designer J. Ram Rakhiani, and both of us worked with them for the next 9 years. And not once, through their hardship and their prosperity, they were so dignified. I think that is
that's an absolutely fantastic story, ma'am. That's absolutely remarkable. We've got some good news to share at this stage. We have another pledge coming in at this point. Zerodha supporting handmade in India with a pledge of 18 lakhs. Thank you so very much for that contribution of 18 lakhs. Well, we're going to quickly move on now. Joining us is Ananya Bhattacharya, the director of BanglaNatok.com. Thank you so much, Ananya, for joining in today. Now, you work extensively on the ground through Bangla Natok. Tell us what you do and the reality that you see on the ground.
Thank you for inviting us to share this story, and I congratulate NDTV for taking this initiative to tell the story of the crafts to the world, crafts of India, because I think that's the most important thing we need to do today. Now, Bangla Natak, our initiative Art for Life, believes that the traditional skills we have, the skills and knowledge we have, that's a tremendous cultural asset. And it is also an asset for development. So BanglaNatok.com works across India with traditional artists, folk artists, performing artists, craftsperson, to build what we say grassroots creative enterprise and empower them to become creative entrepreneurs. So our philosophy is that while the art is to survive, the artist must be directly linked to the market, and we also need to know about the community, the artist's village. So artist village is what we focus on.
Yeah. Ananya, you use culture as a tool for behavioral change in the work you do. So promoting artisans and craftspeople may have more than one positive effect. It could improve their lives beyond just helping them earn a livelihood.
Yes, I think that's the biggest learning we had during the pandemic. We work with more than 25,000 artists. And I'm very happy to share it with you how we saw their resilience. During this time, as we all are aware, the entire market was disrupted. All traditional channels to market were disrupted owing to the pandemic. And so there was no income. But these artists, they did not give up hope, and they invested in innovation and in creating new products, and they upskilled themselves to use digital technology. So our artists, they have been using Facebook Live, they have been using WhatsApp to sell their products. There is a case of, artists like the Patachitra artists in Naya who have created new stories and new scroll paintings on the impact of pandemic. So these are the stories across India. We find the stories of this grassroots movement where they have collectivized and they're taking forward their crafts with tremendous resilience.
Yes.
I think the time has now come to bust the myths that our craft is cheap or craft is repetitive or the whole concept of artisanal labor. We need to recognize that today we have young artists who are artists and not artisanal labor.
Yes,
and they
Ananya.
are learning from their predecessors and they're innovating.
Right.
Thank you for this wholesome development of these artisans. We have, thank you indeed, Ananya. We have Malvika Sarukai, dancer and choreographer. Malvika ji, in the beginning of the show, we saw a beautiful presentation. What was the inspiration behind Tari?
Now, Tari the Loom is a classical dance program, but inspired by the sari. Now, the sari is not just a piece of cloth, it's not just an unstitched garment, but it's an emotion, it's a state of mind, and sometimes it's even a statement. So when we look at classical dance and weaving, which on the surface seem exceedingly different, they seem to share nothing in common, but actually at the deeper level, they share fundamental concepts of space, symmetry, motif, alignment. And I felt with this, it was just including a section of people whom otherwise I would not have danced about or I would not have paid tribute to. So that was as I said, the reason for Tari and, the experience of Tari itself.
So how do you feel a campaign like Handmade Dil Se is needed? How is it needed for weavers and artisans in our country?
The campaign Handmade Dil Se, I think for one is a wonderful, it says it all. Because what artists do is make it Dil Se. And I think this just focuses our attention on that very important aspect which we might otherwise forget. I think it also focuses our attention on the great difficulties that they have faced during this pandemic and the subsequent lockdowns with the plight of having so much exquisite, wonderful products which they have created over months of enterprise, to have them unsold. And I think it's also about saying that society has to engage with them and has to not only be appreciative of their skill and the beauty they create, but also, give to them an informed patronage with dignity of purpose. Because these people are special. They contribute to our lives, and I think it's time we looked at them and validated them. It is not about charity to them. It is to validate their extraordinary enrichment of our lives.
So how can individuals celebrate and validate that skill and mastery behind weaving and art forms in general?
Again, artistic enterprise in whichever discipline across the board has to be supported financially, because without that sense of validation, it really can't exist. It can't sort of nourish and flourish. And I think that's what we're talking about. We're not just talking of survival, but we're saying there is more to it. And I think we as citizens of this country need to really come forward and promote and protect this critical heritage. And with this, in support of the campaign, Handmade Dil Se, me and my creative collaborator, Sumantra Ghoshal, we are delighted to share the digital screening of this classical dance production, Tari the Loom, to raise funds for weavers and artisans. And it is just our small tribute to these extraordinary people who have nourished us and who continue to give us so much splendor.
Well, so many have asked about, thanks ma'am very much for being with us, and we look forward to speaking to you again. But I'm sure you have, and so many in fact around us have asked about what Habba is really about. Now, it is an initiative by Rangde. How exactly did it come about? What was the inspiration? We have this story.
Habba, or Festival, an initiative by Rangde, was conceived and launched in 2015. An audacious attempt to make handicraft items mainstream in India and in the process benefit artisans and weavers. Habba seeks to enhance their incomes and create large-scale economic impact. With their focus only on the artisans, Habba aims to bridge the empathy gap that exists between them and customers through its technology and human-centered design, keeping honest pricing at the heart of the business.
They are buying the right product, but at the same time, consumer also knows what percentage of the money is actually going to artisan and where are various components where the value is being captured. So what's the cost of courier, what's the cost of packaging, what's the cost of production, and what's the margin for Habba. So everything is transparently communicated to the consumer, and this is the first time this level of transparent business is being conducted, and that was something that aligned with Social Alpha's mission of supporting social entrepreneurs.
So special credibility linked to your transparency, that's so critical. But what do you see as the logical next step for Habba? What does the future hold for them?
I think the future for Habba is scale. Habba has already proven the concept. It has already curated some of the finest artisan products. It's also ensuring consumers that they will get good quality products on time. I think the next stage is for the consumers to actually buy, right? And this point has been made in today's program many times that they don't need charity, they need business. And I think people with wallet in their pockets and huge purchasing power need to buy more and more artisan products. Habba will ensure that they get it. And scaling Habba means more and more artisans can get more value for their products.
Right. Right. Manojji, thanks so much for sharing those thoughts. But that, in fact, segues nicely on to our next guests. Smita Ram and Ram NK, the co-founders of Habba, and you know, we've spoken with them, and we've worked with them over the longest time now to get this program, this idea underway. Smita, if I can come to you first, how and why did you come up with the concept of Habba?
I think Vishnu, came from our own journey of working with artisans and weavers through Rangde. And we would support them with working capital, and we felt that we were doing a great job. But when we visited communities that had already received these loans from us for our impact studies and assessments, we realized that we were only fixing a part of the problem. Despite our loans, you know, the lives of our artisans and weavers kind of remained the same. It had not changed. And many of them actually had access to markets. And that actually, you know, raised a question mark for us on how are we actually impacting them. So it took us some time to understand what this problem is. And then we realized there are two things. One, there's a lot of information asymmetry between the customer and the artisans and weavers. Today, as a customer, I may pay a premium for an artisan product without thinking that this money is actually going to the artisans, but that may not be happening in reality. On the other hand, our artisans and weavers may not really know what is it that I am expecting as a customer. So Habba's aim is to really create this community of conscious customers who make this choice of buying handmade and handwoven as a very conscious decision and as a way of life. So that was really the motivation. And luckily, you know, many people here today supported us in this journey. They encouraged us to, you know, get started with the Habba journey. And I must say it has been the most enriching part of our lives.
बिल्कुल स्मिता, ये बहुत अहम है। राम, मैं आपसे जानना चाहूँगी कि आपको लगता है आपकी इस यात्रा में कि जो कई क्राफ्ट्स हैं या आर्ट फॉर्म्स हैं, अगर हम उनको लोगों तक नहीं पहुँचाए तो वो विलुप्त हो जाएंगे, समाप्त हो जाएंगे?
ये बिल्कुल, और स्पेशली आज की जो कोरोना काल में हम लोग रह रहे हैं इस समय, तो ये बहुत ही अहम बात होगी, क्योंकि एक तो उनको रोजगार नहीं मिल रहा है, और ये जो क्राफ्ट हैं जितने भी अभी हैं इस समय, उनका भी एक तरह से टिक पाना इस दौर से बहुत ही मुश्किल होगा। और इसके लिए हमने जो भी हमें करना चाहिए, हमें वो करना पड़ेगा।
Ram, how have corporates reacted to your effort? Now, you know, in an earlier conversation that we'd had, you spoke about your outreach initiatives. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think we've been talking about, all of us have been talking about this new normal, and I think we're all getting used to it. And one of the things, you know, when we started talking to corporates, you know, their point of view was, well, you know, that they don't have a gifting policy, because our pitch to them was, you know, could we dedicate their gifting budget to handmade in India? So, and our, you know, request to them was that in this new normal, you know, we also need to come up with new policies. And one of those policies would be to come up with a handmade in India gifting policy. And to our surprise, many of these corporates agreed to do that, which was almost overnight. Very grateful for that. But this is something which, you know, we would really be looking at more and more corporates to do this. And this is something which will have disproportionate impact.
Right.
On the community profile. Yeah.
The corporate should have a gifting policy, and that too handmade, they'll say. Smita, I'd like to ask you, how have the communities you work with weathered the lockdown?
I think they've done this, as always, they've done this, you know, with a smile. And, you know, they have said that we don't have a choice. How do we cope with this? And they have done different ways of either getting access to markets or continuing with their lives without really complaining. And that really was the reason why we felt something has to be done, and something had to be done at a national level. And I'm so glad that, you know, this entire campaign has been put together by about 200 team members, not just the Habba team. All our partner organizations have come together for this. Habba is just a platform. We are nothing without our partners, right? So 200 team members, 20,000 artisans have actually been a part of this. And I would say that there's a little bit of India in every hamper that has been curated today. And it would just be wonderful for all of us to experience this in this festival season. It's just been an amazing experience.
Yes, Smita, thank you so much. Smita and Ram, thank you so much. So we have more support coming in from Handmade in India at this point. Two anonymous individuals have pledged rupees 5 lakhs each. Thank you for your support. Thank you. Dil se. And now we move ahead, and we have Geeta Ram, another special guest with us. And Geeta, I'd like to ask you, how bad is the situation for our artisans and handlooms?
Well, you see, artisans have always depended on bazaars or haats to sell their ware. They sit throughout summer producing, waiting for the season to start. And this year, of course, there's no season. So they may not even have any stock with them. The pandemic having started in April, a lot of them just sat idle. Some of them got very creative, and some of the painters did some incredible paintings. People wearing masks in their own particular folk style, Patachitra or Madhubani or whatever. But it's been very bad. When we offered to help them bring their business back with a little bit of business development funds we have, they didn't want it. They can't think beyond the lockdown. Yep. They said, do something about our stock. We've got so much stock sitting with us. do something about that, we can't even think of starting business again.
Right. So, as someone who's been a part of the Crafts Council of India, and you're now the chairperson, but you've been with the Crafts Council for the last 40 odd years, what are the biggest challenges that presently persist in this situation that we find ourselves in?
I think we have to do something about marketing.
Right.
Bazaars are not going to happen, but over the last 3 months, a lot of volunteers have got together and have been reaching out to artisans, helping them, teaching them how to do photographs of their own products, helping them to do e-catalogs, and helping them connect to e-commerce websites. And a lot of it has been working. It has not been very easy because not every artisan has a smartphone, but the search is still on for the right thing to do. I think it's going to take a while, but we're all surging ahead. But this Habba initiative has, brought in a silver lining to this heavy clouds. Because as we were preparing the hampers, we are partners of Habba. As we were preparing the hampers for Habba, and we had to reach out to the artisans for more stock, they received our calls with such joy. They were thrilled that we were ordering from them again. So it's really been worthwhile. If we can sell, the more we sell, the more they can produce, and the better it is for them.
And it's so wonderful that just in the course of this program, we've seen people coming forward with their contributions, which is so important in keeping this all alive. But let me ask you this, how can we make sure that there is a sustained and consistent demand for handmade? Is it all just about marketing?
It is about marketing, I think. As far as handloom is concerned, a lot of institutionalized wearing of handloom can be brought about, like the railways can start using handlooms, schools and colleges can say once a month wear handloom. I know offices in Odisha, every Friday they all wear handloom. Everybody, from the secretary to the peon. So, there have to be initiatives like that. For handloom, it's easy because it's textile, it can be made into anything. With crafts, it's a little more difficult. Though crafts were part of our daily lives earlier, we're trying to get crafts back into contemporary lifestyles.
Sure.
And a lot of us have been working with artisans to produce products which fit into contemporary lifestyle.
Right. No, that's obviously a big challenge, but it's wonderful when you see it actually work. Thank you, ma'am, so much for being with us. Thanks so much indeed. Now, we've been talking about Habba's impact on the ground. How does Habba actually achieve this? By partnering with communities and organizations that work with those communities to create an honest marketplace and bring the customer and the artisan together in a bond of appreciation, of skill and empathy. One such community is in Channapatna. Take a look.
The town of Channapatna in southern Karnataka has been long known for its wooden lacquered handicrafts. But over recent years, the demand for these products has been steadily falling. The coronavirus pandemic, which kept away tourists and reduced bulk orders, made the situation desperate for many.
एक सबसे पहले फिनिशिंग, जो फिनिशिंग रहता है उसको वो रेट नहीं मिलता। चाइना का आइटम आ रहा है हमारा और उसका चाइना का आइटम मशीन का, हमारा हाथ के काम का, वो चाइना के आइटम को कम रेट में वो ज़्यादा सेल कर लेते।
हमारे को इसकी उम्मीद ही छूट गई थी, हम बिजनेस कर सकते हैं या नहीं, कुछ उम्मीद नहीं थी। बस अब सामने आगे जाके कैसा करें, घर कैसा चलाए।
Atul Jori came to live near Channapatna some years ago, hoping to make a difference to the lives of these artisans. Now, during the pandemic, along with the organization Habba, he is coordinating the production of thousands of lacquered candle holders to meet the Deepavali demand for corporate gifts. Only natural plant-based dyes are used for these lovely colors.
This is all industrial waste. Only thing which we are using here is traditionally hale mara, which the milk wood they go. This is the sustainable wood, and this traditionally they've been using for centuries actually. In 12 days time, we have 63 master craftsmen working day and night on this.
Different artisans work on different parts of the product. They are paid according to their output and have been working long hours to meet the festival demand. Channapatna has been famous for these wooden products for decades now, but it has been hit hard by mass-produced goods, largely from China, and also the lessening in the appreciation and demand for handmade products. The hope now is to increase the appreciation once again, to increase the demand for these beautiful handmade efforts in order to give the wooden industry of Channapatna life once again. With Govind Murthy, Maya Sharma in Channapatna for NDTV.
Well, you heard Maya there speak about the beautiful handcrafted items of Channapatna, including those lovely little lamps you saw just a few moments back. Those candle holders, in fact, and lamps are made in Channapatna. They're certainly lighting up our set in so many ways. Joining us now, Atul Johri, the founder of Atul Johri Designs. Now, you're one of Habba's impact partners, and you've been quoted as saying that thanks to the partnership, you're creating history in Channapatna. Can you tell us how that history is being created?
Hi, good evening. Definitely, because Channapatna never got a chance to show their excellence actually, because Channapatna was replaced by Chinese products or imitations, fake products actually. But when Habba, just one call from Habba, in fact, I was very sure about we could gather the momentum actually. But we started with 6 artisans in the beginning, and within 3 days we had 50 artisans working day and night. In fact, every day we were adding 60. Today, almost 70% artisans, master craftsmen, in fact, they literally came out of the holes actually, and we are literally, I feel, we are literally sitting on a $1 billion industry in Channapatna actually. We can cater the entire world. That is what the potential Channapatna has. It's not about, we should not look Channapatna as an isolation. This is the story of every craft pocket actually. So, imagine that, and we need to understand, we have to create a market for the new age entrepreneurs. Craft is the only sector where with 50,000 rupees in your pocket, you go to one artisan's doorstep. 1 week you spend time with him. You can create a collection, go back to the market research, and bring the orders and you start working with them. You don't need infrastructure or anything actually. That is the potential of craft.
Right.
Atulji, absolutely, as you said, Channapatna can cater to the world market. Handmade is not low quality. In fact, there's always a question and there's a mindset about the quality of a handmade product. Can you give us more views on that?
That's an excuse actually, because we try to cover our shortcomings in the name of handmade, or as a designer. In fact, I never felt, because the artisans have the potential to, but we never gave them independence. We never gave them respect, what they deserve. So what happens is, artisans, they are all this while, artisans have been working for money, for survival actually. The quality comes the day they start working for what they enjoy doing. So you have to bring their pride back, rather than giving them work in the sense, okay, fine, this is what you earn. So first thing is pride. Once they start taking that, then the money becomes secondary actually. Then they want to excel, they want to show their potential, saying that, okay, this is what we have done. This, we can do much bigger thing, because they are institutions. We need to understand, when I went to Channapatna 15 years back, nobody could taught me anything about Channapatna. No institution, no books. There's nothing written about Channapatna. But what I learned from these master craftsmen,
बिल्कुल अतुल जी, absolutely you're so right. और चन्नपटना, मैसूर और बेंगलुरु के बीच में पड़ता है, बहुत सुंदर टॉयज हैं वहाँ पे मिलते हैं. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद जुड़ने के लिए हमसे, और आगे बढ़ते हैं इस कार्यक्रम में.
Well, before we bring in Nivedita Banerjee, we'd like to thank a foundation which has come in with support for Habba in the form of an anonymous pledge, the first of many this evening so far. 20 lakh rupees, Nidhi, isn't that fantastic? Well, joining us, Nivedita Banerjee, co-founder Samaj Pragati Sahyog and the Director of Women's Empowerment, Social Enterprise and Design, and the founder and CEO of the Kumbaya Producer Company. Thanks so much for being with us. You're one of Habba's impact partners yourself. Tell us about Kumbaya, your work with women in rural MP. How did that start?
Well, I started Samaj Pragati Sahyog with 10 of my friends in rural Madhya Pradesh, and we were working on watershed and agriculture. And during that time, I realized that the participation of women was impossible because all that they were doing was manual labor. They were disinherited from the land that they made productive. And at that point, I realized that if there is anything that should be done, it should be to enable women to have a skill of their own from which they could earn and have independence. So that is how Kumbaya started actually, while building an earthen dam with women who wanted to learn how to stitch and use a skill to earn their living.
निवेदिता जी, मुझे पढ़ के बहुत अच्छा लगा कि वहीं पे गांव में काम भी करती हैं, वहीं पे रहती भी हैं. What was the response when you began so many years ago? Was it difficult finding a market? Did you have to convince people of the quality?
So initially it was impossible because, we were working in an area where traditionally stitching was done by men. So in the first few years, we saw incredible success. I mean, because we were doing patchwork, and that was something at that time, patchwork, machine stitch patchwork or hand patchwork was not very common. But because it was women doing stitching on sewing machines, which was considered to be a male occupation, our center was burned down for a harmless activity like stitching. So, that was the primary challenge, how to make people understand that women needed a separate space to have their capacities recognized, So the other challenge, as you very rightly pointed out, was quality, that people were used to making things that were usable art, which were functional or unique. And what we were trying to do was to create something for the urban market where you needed perfect identical pieces. So that is where I learned how to be a designer, because, it was a challenge to come up with something that could be impeccably executed in a rural area with semi-skilled women for an urban market at a perfect price. So that's how we did it. We trained people from scratch on how to stitch.
What has the impact of the lockdown been in the community that you work with?
Well, in the larger community, it's been terrible actually, because in all sides, everything has, people have migrated back and on their journeys, while coming back, they have seen a lot of violence. They have come back to no opportunities. And in the case of my artisans, in the case of Kumbaya Producer Company Limited, we did not have money to pay wages. So a lot of my producers were sitting at home because they couldn't travel all the distance. I work in a rural area where people come in buses or walking through forests, and sometimes they take over an hour to travel. So many of my producers got left out. Because of the pandemic. They're still left out. We have not been able to help them. Yet, on the other hand, because of my organization's work on women's institutions, we have been able to provide a lot of relief to, almost 20,000 people in our federations, women federations, who live in semi-urban and urban areas who were the hardest hit by the pandemic.
निवेदिता जी, थैंक यू सो मच. और आपकी पूरी जर्नी सुनकर ये पता लगा कितना चुनौतीपूर्ण आपका और संघर्ष भरा ये सफर रहा है. हौसला बनाए रखिए. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद जुड़ने के लिए.
बहुत धन्यवाद.
Yes, we are bringing back Ratna Krishnakumar, Managing Trustee of the Srishti Charitable Trust, for one quick and very relevant question. Ratna ji, how can we ensure that the younger generation of artisans continue their art forms?
See, Parambarik Karigar was founded by 6 master craftsmen who wanted dignity and wanted to be the main people in an organization. So they came to Roshan Kalapeshi, who was working with Kamaladevi Chattopadhyaya, and asked her to give them a chance to have their own organization. So that is how Parambarik Karigar was born. It was started with 6 Karigars, and now we have over 100 Karigars with their immediate family who helps them in their craft. So it's very important for us that the tradition, the Karigari, the tradition continues, because otherwise the craft is going to be dead. So we have always encouraged our youngsters to come along with their parents for the exhibitions. And gradually over the years, I have seen how they contribute their work. And one of the later things that we have done is we have introduced a system of competition for the second generation Karigars. So everyone using their own traditional Karigari brings an item, which could be contemporary, which could be traditional, and it is judged by outside judges, not by us who are associate members. And a prize money is given to them. So this has become a big incentive, and every year, starting from 4, 5, now it has become 20, 25 items that are bought for competition. And other thing is that the recently during the COVID, not recently, I mean the continuing COVID lockdown, we have had online sales to help them tidy over this very difficult period.
Right.
And that time, it is the younger generation who has helped the parents and the uncles and everybody to help set up their net and all the ऑनलाइन फैसिलिटीज।
बिल्कुल रत्ना जी, बहुत अच्छा है कि युवा और जुड़े और उनकी ठोस एक आमदनी का जरिया उनको मिल सके। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
मैं आप यही उम्मीद कर रही हूँ कि और युवा आपके साथ जुड़ें और उनको कमाई का जरिया मिले। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद रत्ना जी। जी।
Yeah, as a result of all this encouragement, we have at least 50% of our youngsters, the second generation Karigars, joining in the mainstream.
We are wishing you all the best, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, before we introduce our next guest, we want to remind our viewers that they can log on to ndtv.com/dilse to buy hampers of handmade gifts. It's a new concept, a mystery hamper. You choose the type of hamper, but not the exact handmade items. What you spend goes to the artisan or the weaver who handmade that gift for the festive season. So we have another special guest with us, Shubhra Nair, founder of the Real Elephant Collective. Shubhra ji, this is an absolute fascinating project. Tell us a little bit about the Lantana elephants.
Well, the Lantana elephants have been created under a kind of large project called coexistence. It's really a herd of 100 life-size elephants constructed out of an invasive weed called Lantana camara, which kind of takes over the forest in South India, South Africa, Australia. And these elephants are kind of now set to travel the globe. And the idea is for them to encourage people everywhere to live well with nature. I think this earth was meant to be shared, and the way we're going, that's really not happening. And I think one of the key things for this project is really that the Adivasis, the indigenous artisans that create these elephants, we have 60 or 70 people who are they are really vital to this process, because I designed the elephants at Collective, some kind of really invaluable data collected by the Shola Trust, and the artists are the ones bring the life and forms, because they live beside and they really understand that every elephant is a replica of the elephant from the forest of Mudumalai. The idea being that individual really says, and this is actually what the artist find really satisfying. Right. They work at it with a drive and really deep understanding, and that has been, I think, missing link in efforts around other types.
We also
And,
believe that 5 of your elephants have actually traveled 5,000 miles across the globe. Is that right?
They have okay, at the moment. Many of them are still here and getting ready to be shipped out, but 70 elephants that are coming in the UK, and they are being adopted by people at this moment because of COVID time. They've had to kind of move the launch earlier this year.
Right. Well, that sounds absolutely fascinating. Thanks so much, Shubhra, for being with us and sharing that wonderful account of the elephants. Thanks so much indeed. Mahesh Yagnaraman, India Country Director of Acumen, with us now. How has Acumen India followed your Acumen Fellows in responding to this crisis?
Yeah, hi. Thanks a lot, NDTV, for this opportunity on the support to artisans. That's the first thing I wanted to say. I think there are several Acumen Fellows who are working with the poor and the marginalized through their social enterprises. When the lockdown started, there were certain collectives and certain organizations like Women's We, which is featured in this program, as well as Loom Kata, run by our fellows. And we initially supported them directly because the artisans were at risk of migrating. So there was a direct support. But as the time goes now, the most important thing is to actually generate awareness and create the demand. I think there is nothing like this kind of a program to raise that level of awareness. And in this case, Ram, who is actually a co-founder of Habba and Rangde, is actually an Acumen Fellow. So we're very glad to be of any support to this.
Maheshji, how critical is it to support this cause, in particular, buying handmade to revive the livelihoods of India's artisans and weavers?
Yeah, thanks. I think there are two ways I look at it. There is one is that after the farmers, if you look at the segment, this is the second largest segment in the rural India in terms of real numbers. You talked at the beginning of the program, 160 lakh families. So it's a staggering number of people who are actually employed directly and indirectly in arts and crafts. What does that mean? They're all actually very skilled. So when their incomes are affected and they don't get there, what happens is they leave these and look for jobs elsewhere. That means they actually become de-skilled. This is a real paradox, and we should not let that happen. That's number one. And number two, I also want to think about the aspect of Atmanirbhar, made in India. Any made in India aspect is a little complicated if you look at the supply chain, because there may be products, raw materials coming from somewhere else. There will be some linkage at times which can come from outside the country. But if you think about artisans and craftsmen, everything starts here. The whole value chain from the beginning to the consumer is actually captured here. So if there is one campaign we can get behind for Made in India and Atmanirbhar, it will be about artisans and craftsmen. It cannot be overestimated at all.
बिल्कुल सही मायने में आपने सही कहा कि यही एक आत्मनिर्भर भारत की ओर हमें ले जाएगा. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद महेश जी. Thank you so much for taking out time and joining.
Thank you.
And we have more support coming in for the weavers and artisans of India. We would like to thank two anonymous individuals and a corporate from Chennai for their respective pledges of ₹5 lakh each. Thank you.
How wonderful is that? Well, joining us now, Vinita Bali, the former MD of Britannia Industries. Ms. Bali, we just heard Nidhi announcing a corporate pledge, people supporting Handmade in India. As someone who's a leader in the corporate world, how can we get corporate India to not just respond to this crisis, but respond with empathy so that our artisans continue to live a life of self-reliance?
I think, Vishnu, you put it very well. This is about ongoing support. This is about validating what these wonderful artists and craftspeople do. In fact, I think my message to corporates really is that these are the people who are keeping the critical heritage of India alive. So right now, we've heard a couple of corporates pledging. There are 2 or 3 things that can be done immediately. One, of course, is, what was the initiation of the Habba is to buy and gift. There are a lot of times where corporates, give you gifts for 5 years, 10 years in the corporate world, etc. A lot of those could be translated into handloom. I think there's another very big thing, and that is that, we've been talking right now of frontline workers. I would love for corporates to step forward, buy these wonderful things created by our artisans and craftspeople and gift them to our frontline workers, because that way we are validating both what the artisans and the weavers and the craftspeople have done, as well as saying thank you to the wonderful people who are keeping us all safe. So I really think that there is, imagination is the only limitation. There are public-private partnerships. We talked earlier about we've got wonderful skills at making these things, but marketing is an issue. I can think of several public-private partnerships where corporates come together, whether it is with the Crafts Council or with bodies of weavers. Earlier on in the show, Vishnu, somebody talked about, the way our tech sector is organized. If we could have a NASSCOM equivalent of handloom, I know there is Crafts Council and so on, but that kind of focus and support, there is a lot that can be done on an ongoing and a systematic basis to continue to encourage, support, respect, and validate the critical heritage that these wonderful artisans and craftspeople provide for us.
Ms. Mali, the key word here once again is empathy. As a guide and mentor to Habba, how important was it to create an initiative driven by empathy?
It was, without empathy, nothing moves, actually. If I am not empathetic towards the artisans, if I'm not empathetic towards the cause, if I don't believe that I can be part of the solution, nothing actually will happen. So, without empathy, frankly, nothing moves. It just becomes a tokenism. And we're not looking at tokenism. We're looking at respecting these people for what they do. They do fabulous work. Many speakers before me have said that this work is unique, it is creative, and they need to be validated, which means they need to be paid for the wonderful work they do, which brings so much joy to all of us. So there's a lot of money in the corporates. There's a lot of money sitting there, whether in terms of normal budgets or CSR budgets. There is imagination and creativity that can be brought to bear for ongoing encouragement and support, whether it is through buying, through marketing, through gifting, through, acknowledging.
Vinita ji, as you rightly said, that corporates have a lot of money, but after the impact of pandemic and lockdown has had on the economy, how will corporate spending change and will it impact these areas of spending?
That's an excellent question you've asked. And what happens is, in a situation like the pandemic, everybody did what was most urgent. So we have to differentiate between the urgent and the important. So the most urgent was making sure people are not going hungry, making sure people who were walking back were given food, etc. So a lot of energy, a lot of money went into those things. Now, this pandemic could be with us for a long time to come. This pandemic changes significantly, how things happen, how people work, etc. And therefore, in that world, corporates have to say, what is the ongoing, systemic, abiding, enduring support that can be provided to our artisans? How can we actually create a context where, like every other industry, this industry is given, if I could use that word, is given incentives. The entire market for handmade products in the world is between $400 and $500 billion. India, with all its unique craftsmanship, is not even 2% of that. So I'm saying Make in India is not just about setting up factories. Make in India is also about supporting these wonderful people, 16 million of them. So that's supporting 80 million people, 80 million people in 16 million households. It is about supporting them for livelihoods, which can go on forever. The other thing I do want to mention is we have to also realize that on average, the government has just brought out its report on the handicrafts sector in India 2019-20. More than 2/3 of weavers make less than 5,000 rupees a month, and less than 10,000 rupees a month covers about 95%. So industry has to be empathetic towards organizing this in such a way that the person who does this fabulous work is rewarded and remunerated. Forget about rewarded, remunerated with equity and with empathy.
बिल्कुल विनीता जी, आपने जो अहम बात की कि NASSCOM के जैसा हमारे हैंडलूम्स और हैंडीक्राफ्ट्स के लिए एक बनना चाहिए, तो उससे एक ठोस मजबूती मिलेगी हमारे क्षेत्र को। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद विनीता जी। और अब हमारे साथ खास मेहमान विद्या बालन अभिनेत्री मौजूद है। विद्या जी, आपके हम पोस्ट इंस्टाग्राम और ट्विटर पर देख रहे हैं, योर लव फॉर साड़ीज इज नॉट हिडन, but we want to know from where did it begin, where did it start, when did you first discover the love for everything handwoven?
I think as a child, you know, and I didn't know the difference honestly, but my mom and all the women around me, my masi, my mommies, my buas, neighbors, you know, I lived in Chembur, which is a South Indian dominated neighborhood. So most of the women wore these lovely South cotton sarees, very simple, you know, just one color with a contrast border or something like that. And I think that's where my idea of beauty actually comes from. And therefore then also, you know, there's this natural affinity to everything handwoven. But I have to say that it was only after I became an actor and I got exposed to the weaves from different parts of the country.
Vidya, there's an urgent need, especially with this pandemic, to support artisans and weavers on the ground. Now, this support is necessary to help these skills and traditions survive this crisis. Would you agree that this is so critical now?
You know, when I started promoting Shakuntala, I decided that I'm actually going to try and do my bit. I don't know how much that will contribute or to what extent, but I decided that I'm going to use this platform that I have to try and help smaller brands and weavers from across the country. So my stylists who wore What When, they actually sourced clothes from all over the country. Of course, today more and more designers are going the hand-woven way.
Right.
But, you know, those clothes tend to be far more expensive. And when you don't have a big designer attached to your name, then to get your product out, your creation out to people gets very, very difficult. I heard about how a lot of them were having to shut shop. And that was very, very heartbreaking. And so I decided I'm going to do this in my own little way. And I'm happy to see that, you know, my stylist shared with me that sometimes these weavers have gotten orders of 55 saris, sometimes 20 saris, and, you know, even outfits, and it feels so good.
Absolutely. विद्या जी, आप उन वीवर्स, उन आर्टिजन्स को क्या कहना चाहेंगी जिनके हाथों में वो जादू है, हुनर है, जो मामूली सी चीज को इतना खूबसूरत बना देते हैं?
हाँ, पहले तो बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, पर मैं जानती हूँ कि उनकी आमदनी उतनी नहीं है, इसलिए काफी बच्चे आज अलग क्षेत्रों में कदम रख रहे हैं। उन्हें लग रहा है कि नहीं, इसमें ज्यादा पैसे नहीं है, हमारा गुजारा कैसे चलेगा, तो इस वजह से वो पढ़ाई लिखाई करके कहीं और चले जाते हैं, इसको आगे नहीं बढ़ा रहे हैं। तो अगर हम सब इसको एक मुहिम की तरह ना समझ के, बिकॉज मैं मानती हूँ कि ये हम सबके फायदे के लिए है, ये हम सबके लिए फायदेमंद हो सकता है अगर हम सब ज्यादा ये उसको क्या कहते हैं इस कारीगरी को इस्तेमाल करने लगे, तो आई थिंक वीवर्स के लिए भी फायदा होगा, हमें भी फायदा होगा, और सही मायने में ये कपड़े जो हैं बहुत लंबे अरसे तक चलते हैं, तो एक्चुअली इन द लॉन्ग रन इट्स मच बेटर.
Vidya, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your love for the hand woven. Thank you so much indeed.
Absolutely, my pleasure, and more power to the initiative.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vidya. Osama Manzar, we have another special guest, founder, director, Digital Empowerment Foundation. So why is this cause led by Habba important and important overall for you?
I would say that not only Habba, but an initiative like this is very important. To create one very essential message is that we need to create an environment of the product used made by the masses rather than the product made for the masses.
Right.
We have been struggling always with the man and the machine. What India gives employment, the largest employment, is because the product is made by the masses. But if the user has that same consciousness that I need to use the product made by the masses, obviously then we are going to benefit the masses and not going to benefit the machines.
How can your organization, the Digital Empowerment Foundation, support such an initiative?
I don't know, many of you know that DEF has been working with artisans and handicraft people for the last 10 years. We have started our journey in Chanderi. And because of the information asymmetry, we created from 60 crore to 250 crore market there. And we realized that it's very, very important to imbibe the essentials of digital into the lives of the producers, and not only the middlemen, by the way. The problem is that even though we call our artisans, artists and creators and producers, but the point is that they are far, far away from the knowledge middlemanship. And they don't have the tricks of the trade, they don't have a market reach, and digital is one of the most essential things that they have not been able to get it. And that is another reason why when COVID came, everything started becoming digital and they lagged behind.
Right.
Because not that everything is stopped there. I will give you an example. Like we work with digital resource centers in villages, many of our digital entrepreneurs became makers of masks at the ground because that was required at that point of time. So our producer need to know how we can market, how we can take this technology for the benefit of designing, making, marketing, selling, and all that.
Right. Fascinating, Manzar Saab. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. Prannoy Roy joins us once again. And at this stage, I'd like to introduce Dr. Ashok Khosla, Chairperson of Development Alternatives. Also, Kanika Verma, Lead Entrepreneurship Program, Development Alternatives. Dr. Khosla, what about the government's role in all of this? What initiatives and schemes can the government bring in at a time like this when artisans perhaps need government support more than ever before?
Well, government has come alive to this, and for some years they've been thinking about and doing a lot to try and help clusters of the craftspeople all over the countryside. And the Ministry of Micro and Small Enterprises has been actually quite at the forefront of this. First, I just wanted to say I'm delighted to be here. And Prannoy, you remember 40 years ago when we were starting Development Alternatives, you were one of our early supporters and guides. We go back a long way. Several subsidiaries of DA, Development Alternatives, have been set up over those last 40 years. And one of them is the India Micro Enterprise Foundation. And we've been working with several ministries. The government has been quite supportive. And we are iteratively developing with government ideas about how to reach craftspeople on a much, much larger scale than before.
Sure. Kanika, I'd like to ask you a question. Let me ask you, how does one build scale? What I mean to say is that how can handmade be scalable?
Thank you so much. And again, I'm delighted to be here and delighted to be part of this initiative. I think the most important thing and the premise that we base anything that we're developing is to make sure that the artisans are empowered. And I guess this is what this campaign is about. And we have a very simple three-step process for doing that. One is looking for innovative collaboration. And I think this is where our collaboration with Habba is extremely important, because the support that we provide to the artisans combined with the market support can really take things to scale. I think the second step in the process is to make sure that we have their voices in the solution. at the end of the day, it's their aspirations and their needs. And technology can be extremely disruptive, but it can also be a double-edged sword. So we always make sure that their voices are in the solution. We co-create the solution with the artisans. I still remember we had gone to a village and where a lot of the elderly weavers were like, but who are you creating the solution for? Because the young people don't want to be part of the solution. So we started spending a lot of time with the youth, and then we started figuring out how they could be part of improving value chains, maybe look at even some kinds of designing initiatives. I think the other is to make sure that women are an important aspect of what we do. They're not at the lower end of the chain looking at the most subsistence kind of support, but are at the forefront of the solution. I think the third is
No, Kanika, I was just very curious to know about your Sphurti program. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I think that's where Sphurti comes in, because I think Feroz was also talking about it, that we're looking at long-term sustainability. And the Sphurti program is to just make sure that we have the right infrastructure that the artisans require so they can move away from drudgery, and also provide support by collectivizing them. So a common facility center, for example, can ensure that all their needs are met together. There's zero wastage, and also some of the solutions also are matched with environmental needs as well. And of course, connecting to the markets is an extremely important aspect. So the big point in Sphurti is that we turn an artisan into an owner of his or her enterprise.
Right. Ashok, it's just wonderful to see you. I must say something which to you, which I even say when you're not in the room. I admire and have admired you for years, because when 30 years ago you started Development Alternatives, it was amazing, the vision and the scale. Now you've had all these years of experience. Give us 2 or 3 points that really would help this country push and help the livelihoods and push the artisan sector forward. We've not managed it well so far. We've done well with software, but we could do brilliantly with artisans as well. Give us 2 or 3 things from your experience that we could learn from.
Well, Pranoy, I think one thing one has to recognize is that it's a mindset problem. One has to go back to the Mahatma, really, to see that it's insights, it's the commitment, it's the dedication to certain visions that a country has to make if it's going to get its problems solved. And basically, Gandhiji said, you start at the bottom. You basically put the last first. And if you design your development patterns to take care of them, you have a totally different outcome, and the kind of outcome that you're talking about, both in terms of improving large numbers of lives, but also at large scale. So the first thing is that we forgot. I think over the last 75 years, we were so concentrated on providing for Sensex and stock markets and FDI and large-scale capital investments that we really forgot that a very large part of this country, in fact, two-thirds, maybe 3/4 of this country, depends on household and creative industries that really mean a lot and are huge potential for serving our own needs as well as for exports. So that's number one. Number two, one has to also recognize that we've destroyed more than simply jobs and livelihoods. We've destroyed our environment, our forests, our rivers, our soils. We're now in very serious trouble. I mean, our next generation is going to pay very heavy costs for the kind of lack of productivity, this destruction of productivity of our resource base that we've landed them with. So now we've got to design our future and our jobs and our livelihoods in such a way that we also regenerate the environment. So the second thing you really need is to look after that. And the third thing is that if you get your priorities right and you help using high-tech, digital and everything else, ways to connect the producer to the consumer, then I think you've got a fighting chance.
बिल्कुल अशोक जी, आपने एक बार फिर से गांधी जी की याद दिला दी और गांधी जी की खादी को
is a strong point of India. We have a comparative advantage there, right? We must push it like we have a comparative advantage in certain other sectors. Artisanship and craftsmen,
Exactly.
craftspeople are just our strength, and we somehow are ignoring it.
Yeah.
Right. Very, very good points. Very good points. Thank you, Ashok. Thanks.
Thank you.
God bless you for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
बिल्कुल बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद अशोक जी। और गांधी जी की जो खादी है उसको एक नई राह के साथ हमें आगे लेके जाना है। एक और खास मेहमान हमारे साथ हैं संजय पुरोहित, चीफ क्यूरेटर, सोसाइटल प्लेटफॉर्म। So I'd like to ask you, Societal Platform is a network that helps create massive impact on massive scale. You try and solve social problems at scale. What solutions could you be providing Habba to scale up to that level?
I think first and foremost, I must start by saying that Habba's core values, which is around restoring the agency of the artisans, is a very important starting point. And also associated with the idea of agency is the idea of dignity and choice. How do we ensure that our artisans have the agency and the dignity and the choice to build their own livelihoods? Our focus has been to identify large, complex and dynamic problems. आप देखिए जो artisans की problem है, that is such a large problem. It's also very complex because उसमें किस तरह से चीजें change होगी, how will the environment shape is very unpredictable. It's dynamic. देखिए कोविड के टाइम पे things have changed so fast, and so whenever you have large, complex and dynamic problems, उसमें आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि you should scale what works. You have to figure out what works at scale. इसमें बहुत difference होता है. Scale what works versus what works at scale. इसमें I believe कि तीन चीजें बहुत important है. एक तो how do you respond very quickly, right? अभी जैसे crisis चल रही है, lot of people are out of their livelihoods and there is a huge risk that this entire sector may collapse very rapidly. How do we respond? But उसके साथ में we also have to think about responsibility. Responsibility of the government, responsibility of the civil society, responsibility of the markets, to how do we resurrect and really bring this up in a very big way. And the last one is resilience, because ये shock waves काफी time तक चलेंगी. So what we have been focused on saying, how do you use digital technologies to create a backbone unifying infrastructure? This is not about the next app or the next portal, but how do you create interoperability infrastructure such that actors जो हैं अलग-अलग समाज के, जैसे government के actors हैं या society के actors हैं, NGOs हैं, different artisans हैं, वो साथ मिलकर के एक unified way में काम कर सकें. They can actually sell their products, they can exchange designs, they can build capacity of the sector, and do it like one integrated infrastructure. जैसे आप करते हैं आज, आप whether you are working on telecom, internet, आप Uber use करते हैं, आप तरह-तरह के platforms use करते हैं, उनको आप service of society क्यों नहीं use कर सकते? Why can't you use it to actually improve things of things that matter to the livelihoods of millions of people? So that has been our point, and Habba के साथ and Rangde के साथ, it would be very interesting idea to say कि वो Habba का idea लेकर के how do we build a national infrastructure that can create this unifying environment for our artisans? And that is the central idea that we are focused on.
So why is the cause of handmade a cause worth supporting for Societal Platform?
It's a very important cause because in the end, jo artisans who are there, they are the ones who know what is right for them. They know the local ecology, they know the local economy, they know what to produce. And that is why this whole idea of producing what people can produce in their context and bringing it to a larger ecosystem of consumers and different actors in the society, usme we have to really focus on the idea that it's not about creating large scale organized infrastructure, but more diverse, more distributed. हम लोग उसको बोलते हैं कि either we can distribute solutions or we can distribute the ability to solve. And इस तरह की जो प्रॉब्लम होती है जो एक नेशनल स्केल पे हमको सॉल्व करनी है, उसमें वी हैव टू डिस्ट्रीब्यूट द एबिलिटी टू सॉल्व. और वो करने के लिए वी हैव टू एम्ब्रेस हैंडमेड, बिकॉज द लास्ट माइल, जिसको हम लास्ट माइल भी नहीं बोलते एक्चुअली, फर्स्ट माइल, जहां से कि रियली वेयर लाइफ ओरिजिनेट्स, वहां पर हैंडमेड इज द रूट दैट वी हैव टू रियली बिलीव इन एंड बिल्ड द स्ट्रेंथ आउट ऑफ.
All right, Mr. Purohit, thank you so much for sharing those thoughts. Thanks so much indeed. Let's go back to Ram and Sita. Ram, let me come to you and ask you this. Are you encouraged by what you've seen in terms of of people coming in on this program and being a part of it? For example, we've just received an anonymous pledge of 35 lakh rupees, and that's absolutely incredible. I mean, that's exactly what we were hoping for. So before I ask you anything else, just your reaction to people coming in and wanting to be a part of this movement.
I think it's absolutely overwhelming, Vishnu, and we're very grateful to NDTV for helping us get the message out. And this is just the beginning. I think, people are discovering the magnitude of the problem which the country is facing. And this is something, which is, very easy to address. As a corporate, as a business leader, this is as creative, as Indian as it can get. So this is something, and it's very heartwarming to see the kind of support we're getting. And we're hopeful that we'll continue to get this, because this is what the community of artisans across the country need. And if you look at the overall demand, it's not huge. I was just talking earlier that 3 corporates in Bangalore were able to create employment for 70 artisans in Channapatna, and we created history. Now, this is just 3 corporates coming together. So the potential is immense.
Absolutely huge potential.
Fantastic work. This is a great initiative, really important, and it's moved me, and I'm sure I found so many messages from people in other countries who are saying that we're going to work on, find out what we can do for the handloom sector and the artisan sector and create demand for them. You really touched a chord, I tell you, with this. It is amazing. Now, just from this experience, and what high quality handmade articles we produce, what one thing, if you could get the government to do, and one thing you could get corporate sectors to do, and one thing you could get all of us lay people to do. So that's 3 things. You can take one each and share the third.
Okay, I'll talk about the corporates, and I think many of our guests today spoke about how corporates can make a big difference. And I think this is really the time to look at this problem with empathy. In the pre-COVID era, many corporates would probably have stalls, exhibitions where artisans would actually come and display these products. And I think it's time to move on from there and look at, some really innovative solutions to help bridge this gap where artisans and weavers don't have access to markets. So my appeal to the corporates would actually be to think of new ways of supporting artisans and weavers, because they can actually bring about scale, and they can also help address this problem of how do individuals access, individuals get access to artisans and weavers. So the corporates have both the solutions at a policy level, what they can do within their company, and how they can introduce their employees to artisans and weavers and crafts across India.
Yeah, and from a government point of view, I think, clearly, they can take a hard look at the GST, especially in these times. This has been, something which has, created a lot of debate. But these are the times when we should really relook at it and see, overcome challenges around identifying what is handmade and how they could give a reduced rate for handmade in India.
All right. Exactly. I'm sort of jumping in over here because I have an announcement to make, people. I've got an announcement to make. And the announcement is that we've crossed 1 crore. We've crossed 1 crore in terms of people willing to contribute to this wonderful cause. And that's going to change the lives of so many people directly associated. Artisans, their families. It's not just artisans, it's their families. It's the areas they live. And indeed, it is their craft. That's absolutely incredible. Joining us now, Prasad Bidappa.
And Vishnu, this is just for tonight. It's going to be open for the next few weeks.
Exactly.
So people can keep buying, donating, and furthering this cause. Yeah, this is just these less than 2 hours. Amazing.
No, exactly. And this goes on like so many of these efforts of ours. It's not just this program. It goes on over a period of time and people can keep contributing. Prasad Bidappa, the fashion and textile consultant, with us now. Now, you're considered one of the most influential voices for the revival of India's traditional textiles. You also have created value for handmade in India. Why do you think it's so important at this juncture particularly, and what are some of the biggest challenges that you now see?
You know, it just gladdens my heart to see NDTV do what you're doing and finally train a spotlight on the great artisanal skills of India. You know, I think it's a problem of perception. For too long, we've considered khadi and handloom a discount product, something that you go to the khadi bandar and buy at 40 and 70% discounts. That should not be the case, because handmade in India is truly a luxury product. We have the potential to become a global luxury product. Our textiles, our processes, our crafts, our art. Why are we not taking this to the world? For example, in the Prime Minister's skilling program, you don't see any of the hand skills given importance. It's all about machinery and machine made. So if we can realize that 21% of India's population are directly or indirectly connected with handmade in India, you realize what an enormous potential it is to create employment and to do something fantastic with this entire genre of beautiful things. I, for one, really believe that the artisans of India are the true designers. They make fantastic textiles, fantastic products, and all our designers have to learn that they can no longer go around buying Chinese-made fabric and textiles that are man-made when we have this wealth of fabric in this country. I, for one, cannot take a designer seriously unless they're using handmade textiles.
I think that's really well put, Prasad. I mean, it's so true. Okay, now we've looked at the quality and the unique aspect of it. What about the other side, the demand? That how do we generate demand? You know, there's so many, I mean, media unfortunately is one aspect of it, but there are many others. And could you just give us some direction in that? Because it's very important to make sure that there is a huge global demand for this.
I think one of the most important things that we need to do is to sensitize our own youth to the beauty of khadi, handloom, and the handmade products of India. We cannot afford to look down on this anymore. These are products that are truly world-class. I mean, tell me what's so great about a luxury bag or a luxury pair of shoes, and you can't call a Banaras sari a luxury product? I mean, carry the bag by all means, but wear the Banaras, wear the Patola, wear the Kanjivaram, and take these fantastic fabrics and show it to the designers in the West. I think that they could make wonderful evening dresses out of it if they were purpose woven to what they would require. We need to make these connections. We need to take our artisans to the world. Today, you look at people like Ramkishore Derewala, the master block printer. He's a Padma Shri out of Jaipur. He's creating fabrics that are absolutely amazing.
Sure.
His process is indigo. It's just fantastic. I don't see which designer in the world would ever turn it down. When we worked on Rajasthan,
I think Prasad, I think you have inspired me and maybe many others to say from now on, we are going to buy handmade garments, handmade everything, and make an effort much more in that direction. You have convinced me, and let's hope we can convince lots of others as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great step.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
In fact,
so
that's our
much.
last word. Prasad Bidappa, you have the last word. Why should people be buying handmade? Tell us a little bit about what people need to do to support India's crafts, artisans and weavers. The last word to you on this program.
You know, the handlooms of India were in such great danger because the British had managed to finish us off. They wanted us to wear only all their Manchester fabrics, which is why you see our fathers and grandfathers all standing around wearing suits. But our mothers never let the saris go. And you see so many women in old pictures wearing the most beautiful of handloom saris. And this is something that we need to pass down to generations, to the next generation especially, who are so enamored of the Zaras and the H&Ms. They have to look within and see what we have in our country is even better, even finer. we have the potential to create things that become family heirlooms.
Right.
A beautiful sari is handed down from mother to daughter.
Right.
And we need to tell the young generation that this is what it's all about. This is the real thing.
And this is the
And
time
me,
to be
it
doing that.
always will be the real thing.
Absolutely.
And I think that what Habba is doing is fantastic.
It is indeed.
And I think that you should call it the luxury box, nothing less, because every piece of handmade in India is the last word in luxury and always will be to me and to many other people in this country.
Well, we'd like to thank you and
when
all
everybody
of the
goes to the
participants.
shops, they should say, show me something that's handmade, not all this other stuff. Show me
Absolutely.
handmade products. Yeah,
बिल्कुल
wonderful.
त्योहारों के इस
Wonderful.
मौसम में हैंडमेड दिल से
Thank you so much for watching Handmade Dil Se, supported by Rangde. We are completely out of time on this, but do please keep contributing. From all of us here, goodbye.